We'll go ahead with rest of the things. Okay. So what we discussed yesterday was load balancer. So there are two type of load balancer: ILB, internal load balancer, and external load balancer. So suppose, just a second. Okay. Suppose this is our cloud infrastructure. Azure cloud. Inside Azure cloud, we have different VM, virtual machines running, application servers running. So there was VM1, VM2. This is the app server. There are few storage units or databases. So storage 1, DB1, DB2. So there are two type of load balancer we discussed yesterday. One of them was ILB. Second was the ELB, external load balancer. The only difference between both load balancers are ILB are for the internal networks and ELB are the load balancer that we need to connect with outside world, that is internet. So suppose these are the two load balancer. Okay. So when there is one VM inside your network, Azure premises, or suppose there is another office and there is another virtual machines running, and if it need to access something from this VM to VM, this VM, and then this must be front end server or any other server. So it will request this VM for certain data, and this VM will transfer the request to ILB, internal load balancer. So this will be the private IP for the incoming request, and all these requests will go to different servers running. So there is no public network associated with this. Even this network connecting one premises to other premises is internal network. That could be the VPN or express route, which is also termed as MPLS. So it's a dedicated private link. So over here, this load balancer is is working for the internal servers, internal applications, and internal VMs. So it's a ILB. And when another load balancer that is associated with the public IP. So it is associated with the public IP, and every incoming request from the public different users are reaching this load balancer, and then this load balancer is transferring those requests to some app server or some storage unit or to directly to VMs. So that is the different options. It sends the request and incoming request. They receive the response from the servers. So any doubt in this? ILB, ELB? Any doubt in load balancer? What load balancer does?
No, sir, it is fine.
No.
Okay. So we performed few labs on the load balancers. The next one is the we didn't discuss yesterday was the traffic manager. Traffic manager. So what is traffic manager? Traffic manager is equal to load balancer. So what is the difference? If traffic manager is equals to load balancer, there must be some difference. Suppose we have one enter our setup on Azure. So in order to distribute traffic, so this is our website youtube.com. Those youtube.com servers are running in this Azure location. So in order for users or multiple customers to access youtube.com, they will all send requests to this load balancer. And they will send requests to this load balancer. It will send requests to all these servers simultaneously one by one and perform the distribution of load on different machines so that no one machine is overloaded or exhausted. But there is second condition. I am sitting over here in India region and this is Europe region. There is another region that is APAC region. So my location close to my location is APAC, not the Azure. And if I'm trying to access or go to this, it will be too far for me and there will be high latency. So we need something to load balance across the region because this is different region. Region 1, that is the Europe. Another region is APEC. Region 2, this is load balancing. So suppose I'm typing www.youtube.com. If every time it is going to this data center and even if it is traffic is distributing among the different servers, still I will be having latency. So in order my traffic to go to one India location to Europe location, it will take time. And if I do not want to go to Europe region and our servers are running over here, APEC region, and there is one LB load balancer, then I have to type different URL like www.youtube1.com. Then I will be redirected to this load balancer and to this machine. So now latency is less, but we do not want to use n number of different addresses for the same website, same server, same application. So what to do? So from this traffic manager came into the picture. So traffic manager is deployed at every location or you can deploy it to only one location. And if suppose this is the traffic manager and we will deploy it in the Europe region. So when I will type www.youtube.com, so my requests will first go to traffic manager and then it will reply no. I am not the closest one. The closest one is the India one, APEC one, Asia Pacific one. So don't come to me. Go to APEC. So DNS resolution. So when you will type www.youtube.com, it will go to traffic manager and it will reply with the DNS resolution that go to this IP, not my IP, go to 13.1.1.2, which is the APEC IP. So load balancing is happening on the DNS level. So it will not ask me to go to here and then process the request. No, go to another location that is the APEC one and it will give me the resolve the IP to the APEC and now traffic will go to APEC and then hit the internal load balancer. So what it is doing is load balancing the requests across the region. So it's a LB similar to LB sitting somewhere between and when traffic if every request is going to Europe, the user sitting at Europe location will start facing slowness. So we need to distribute the traffic across the multiple regions. So we use traffic manager. So if we'll deploy traffic manager over Azure, every request that is coming to traffic manager, just like load balancer, there's public IP assigned to traffic manager. And that will be youtube.com IP, and when youtube.com IP will hit the traffic manager, it will request to redirect to APAC location. So yes, if India traffic going to India, if Europe traffic going to Europe, and similarly this is happening. So it's a DNS level load balancing. Any doubts in this?
No, sir.
So if you will look over here, we can see there is option to create a traffic manager profile. If I'll go to traffic manager profile and create a traffic manager profile, it will ask me to enter the details and add the service endpoint. So suppose I'm creating traffic mgr1 routing method. We can select the routing method as per our requirement. So if we want routing method should be geographical, like India users should go to India, UK users should go to UK, then we can select geographical. Or on the basis of weight, we can select okay, this location has this much weight, this location has this much weight, so priority is this and then this, then this. Or we can select priority itself, or we can select on the subnet basis. So it's up to you how we want to deploy this traffic manager. So suppose we are selecting geographic, or we can select performance. Okay, if latency of APAC is less, then do send traffic request to APAC. And if latency, if user is in Europe, so latency of Europe will be less. So send the request to Europe. So that's how it works. Resource group, we selected the test resource group, create. So just like load manager, I built the traffic manager, just like load balancer. Now I have to attach some VM or some endpoint to this, so that when user request is coming to traffic manager, it will redirect it to either Europe or APAC or some other region. So once it is created, now we can add the endpoint. Should be deployment, go to resource. Okay, this is the traffic manager profile. It is created. Now I need to add the endpoint to this. So here it is, endpoint. Azure endpoint, EP1. Now I have to select the services. So for this, we have app services, we have cloud services, we have slots, and if we want to distribute as per public IP address, we can select the public IP address. So suppose we are selecting the public IP address. Now we can select the public IP address. So suppose this is the FW test. I will select this. No DNS configured. It's not allowing me because there is no DNS configured for them. Public DNS. So once there's public DNS configure, we can add one endpoint and then other endpoint. Once this is done, we will select this URL, DNS name. We will type this DNS name and it will transfer my request to certain endpoint. As of now, there is no endpoint associated. So it won't redirect. But for this lab, I have to create a app service or associate it with some VM that is having DNS name. So I'm trying to your endpoint. Okay, one service. There isn't any app service running. So I need to configure either app service or I need to configure the DNS, public DNS for this lab to perform the lab. So I will create a apps, will give the demo of the traffic manager in the app service section. So later in during our at the end of the course or somewhere in between, we'll discuss app service. So just a second, let me check if I can create a app service over here. App service test. So I need to give it a URL test one. So for that traffic manager lab, I have to create this web app service that is the app server, and then from traffic manager, I can distribute the traffic to different apps. App mean website. It will be the website. So I have to create some backend thing for this as well to create a program in ASP.NET or some demo program in order to run either in Python. So I will show you this one later, traffic manager. But do you have any doubt in traffic manager? What it does, how it works, how we can create it and associate the endpoint?
At endpoint, we can use any public server, public DNS, so it will directly reach to there.
So for the
Right?
yeah, if you will see the traffic manager profile over here, so in order to connect the endpoint, you have different options. Like either I can select any running cloud service or app service. App service is the just consider it as a website, or I can select app service slot, or I can select public IP address. So traffic manager is little different in compared to load balancer because load balancer is distributing the load of the resources. That resource can be VM, that resource can be storage, that resource can be database, that resource can be web servers. But when it comes to traffic manager is transferring the request for the app services, any server, web servers, or if you want traffic for the public IP address. But you need to have either DNS allocated to the IP server. That DNS should be public DNS, not the private one, since it's not an internal function. It's for the public endpoint, and either DNS or you need to have some app service. So if there is app service running, app service will be if I will create the app service from there, automatically DNS entry will created. So public DNS will be created with the name Azure endpoints dot something. So it app service will automatically create a public DNS. Same about slot or cloud service. We need to have public DNS in order to traffic manager to work. Any other doubts?
No,
Okay. So we looked into the load manager, we looked into the traffic manager. Next, we were looking into the Azure firewall. So what is firewall? It's a security device that protect your network. Something that is sitting at perimeter where public IP terminate, or even if you want it to for the internal private IP, so where private IP terminate and it safeguard your internal network. So every traffic that is coming through public IP, that is coming from private IP, or if there is DMZ zone that contains servers and all, so any traffic that is coming from the server zone to your network, to inside your network, this is being protected by firewall. And how it protect? It has multiple functions like DOS protection. The DOS is denial of service protection. When they are, if someone wants your servers, your website, or your network to be down, they will transfer n number of requests using there are different tools. If you google search tool for the DOS, you will find there are publicly many tools available that you can use for the DOS attack. And what that tool will do, it will send a TCP request to your server, and your server will receive lakhs of 1 lakh or more requests within a second. And since if there will be 1 lakh, 2 lakh, or 3 lakhs requests for one server, it won't be able to handle all these requests. So it will be almost down. No new requests will come through this, or there will be heavy slowness. So what firewall does? It will limit the sessions. It will limit the session. Suppose 100 sessions are coming from the same source IP. So it will disallow, no, there can be more than 100 incomplete session, because these requests, those are the part of the attack. If this server that is very powerful cannot handle 1 lakh requests, then the sending software can even handle that request. So it's just throwing the packets, it's not handling the packet. So if you are aware of the TCP, what TCP does, it's a three-way handshake. So sync, acknowledgement, sync, and then acknowledgement. So it is sending the sync request to our server and lakhs of sync requests. And when our sync server is returning the X sync, this server cannot handle this 1 lakh X sync. This software or this guy hacker or some attacker cannot handle 1 lakh, because this server is more powerful than his laptop. Or even if he has got the powerful server, still he has to reply for all X sync. So this server cannot handle that request, so it will drop that request automatically. So this, in order to prevent our server, what firewall does, it will say, okay, 100 is the maximum session for one source IP. If there are 100 incomplete session, it will drop the 101 session. So either there should be 100 complete session, or if there's 100 incomplete session, I will drop the 101. So it has DOS protection enabled on this. So there are multiple features on the firewall that is being provided, like netting, source net, destination net. So there are two type of netting. Basically, netting is nothing public to private IP conversion and private to public IP conversion, and sometime even private to private IP conversion. So if there is only one IP on the firewall and request is coming and users are sending the request, it will convert into the private IP and send the designated server. So netting is being performed on the firewall. This is the one of the features. There are other features like FQDN filtering or access list, source block or allow, like an SD block or allow on the basis of source IP, destination IP. So these are the filtering network traffic filtering rules. So it support the network filtering rules. Even this is the Azure firewall. We are talking about the Azure firewall. Azure firewall is the native solution provided by Azure. So it's a native solution. It do not support many features of the firewall like IDS intrusion detection or intrusion prevention. These are the features that has been provided by the next generation firewall. So this is the native firewall. It do provide a lot of features like SSL offloading or netting or access list filtering or prevention of denial of service. But there are a lot of other features that is being utilized by the core or important firewalls. So those firewalls are next generation firewall. It's not a next generation firewall. Still, it's provide a lot of features of the firewall. So this is the native Azure firewall. There are typical limitations on this firewall. Firewall. So like limitation like it support TCP or UDP protocol for the internet traffic. So all the TCP UDP protocols are supported. If there are other protocol like SNMP, so network filtering rule. So network filtering rule won't work for SNMP. So it will by default allow the SNMP in that case, or we will have to block all of it. So there are other limitations that there is no DNS support, or if there is some firewall that is sitting inside our premises and we have two VNets, VNet 1, VNet 2, and suppose this VNet is going to firewall and then VNet 2, any request. So if we want this point to do network address translation, so it will allow the netting for the public to private or private to public, but it won't allow private to private. So these are the certain limitation that is with the Azure native firewall. But if it's we are using any other any other solutions from the Azure marketplace like Palo Alto or Checkpoint or Fortinet, these are the other solutions also called as virtual appliance. So they will provide all the next generation firewall features. So if you are aware of firewall, how it works, so you might be aware of the next generation features, IDS, IPS, and there are other features as well, like private to private netting and all. So if we do not want to use Azure firewall and we can go for, I mean, we have big pockets and we can spend enough money and we need a high level of security, we can go for the Palo Alto Checkpoint Fortinet. So even in I've seen in some many organizations they are not using the native firewall. They are using Palo Alto Checkpoint Fortinet, but still a lot of people use Azure firewall for normal purpose, and for next generation features they go for these costly vendor specific firewalls. So next is about the configuration. So when we are going to set up the Azure firewall, first thing, it should be placed in different subnet or different VNet. So you cannot do like I have subnet 1, I have two VMs running, and I can there are a lot of free IP address available, so I can assign one IP address to Azure firewall. No, you cannot allow. You need to create another subnet 2, that should be named with Azure firewall subnet, and then you have to assign the firewall or create the firewall in this subnet. Next, it works in a hub and spoke method. Like this is our Azure firewall. And suppose this is our subnet, subnet 1. This was the firewall subnet. This was the subnet 2. So what we need to do is we need to go to root table. We need to create a root table and associate a subnet with this root table. Suppose subnet 1 with this root table, and create a root with the root. That root will say, okay, this route table has subnet 1. So all traffic from subnet 1 should go to firewall. So this was the hub and this was the spoke. We, for this hub and spoke method to work, we created a root table where we assigned this subnet with this root table 1. So suppose this was the RT1. We assigned this subnet, one subnet, and then we created a route that says every traffic from subnet 1 should first go to Azure Firewall. And from Azure Firewall, it can go to subnet 2 or it can go to public IP. So it is working just like a hub and spoke. So every request that is coming to this, it should come first to hub, that is Azure Firewall, and then it will be routed to spoke, that is subnet 1. So that's the deployment method. It is sitting somewhere between different subnet and all, and traffic is first coming to the firewall and then going to the other end. So if we have on premises, so we have on premises to on premises office, and we need to communicate to subnet 1. So our request will first go to Azure Firewall since it's sitting the hub, and then goes to subnet 1. Or if we have associated route, second route for the subnet 2. So every traffic coming from some other location, any other location to Azure Firewall, then it will go to subnet or subnet to outside. Second thing, like it has limitations. This firewall has limited. It should be in the different subnet. There is on one more limitation, or it's a limitation, or it's a configuration part. Like everything that we are deploying, like this firewall, subnet, VNet, they should be on in same resource group. So if we are deploying any firewall in East US region, so there should be one firewall in the East, one or more firewall in the East region, but we cannot connect any other resources to this firewall. So suppose this was the on premises and traffic need to come to subnet 1. So it is we cannot route the traffic of Azure firewall to on premises as a connection. We need to have some VPN connection from on premises to Azure, and then traffic can come to Azure firewall. So it's not a directly connected thing. Suppose we have two region, East US and West US. So if we are deploying Azure firewall, these two regions should have different two firewall. So one firewall over here and one firewall over here. We can connect 2 or 3 or up to 10 VNets over here, or up to 1, 2, 3, 10 VNet over here. So there is no limitation over connecting the different VNet to this firewall. But on in one region there should be one firewall, and if we are having only one resource group or two resource group, so for every resource group there should be one firewall. So all firewall, subnet, VNet, and resources should be in the same resource group. Any doubt in this in firewall?
No, sir.
What about others? We haven't seen
No,
the lab. We'll quickly review how to do the lab for the Azure firewall, and in detail we'll see in the next section. Today I want to complete all the theoretical part for the networking, the all main component. And if something is left, we'll discuss in next session. So any doubts in Azure firewall, just let me know.
No, sir.
Okay. So next thing in the Azure networking is VPN. So we have one on premises, we have Azure East US, we have Azure Europe region. So suppose we have different Azure region, AG Europe, AZ East, and we want to connect AZ East with AZ Europe. We can use VNet peering, right? Since it's the Azure to Azure connection, we can use VNet peering. It will be fast, it will be secure, and we do not need to take any load because it's a easy method. But when it comes to connecting on premises, we do not have something like VNet peering to connect your on premises to Azure. So what all option we have? First option we have create site to site VPN for our on premises to connect with East US or on premises to connect with Europe region. We need to have site to site VPN. Or second option we have express route. So in order for us to have connectivity, we either deploy site-to-site VPN. So this will be created on the public internet. So it will be created on the public internet, and you can configure it by yourself. You do not need support for any from any provider, Airtel, Vodafone, Verizon, T-Mobile, or any other company. But if you want to go with the express route, no, I want a dedicated bandwidth. I want dedicated link from my on premises to Europe or somewhere. So in that case, you need to go for the express route. So express route, it's just like MPLS. You have your dedicated connection from on premises, point to point dedicated connection from your on premises to Azure resources. It will be costly. Over here, you can configure it by yourself. There is no additional cost associated with this when we are configuring the site to site VPN. We just internet connection and public IP on both end. But when it comes to express route, we need support from the service provider, and they will assist it how to configure, or they will provide the assistance for our router to be configured as per their details and over Azure as well. So we need two routers. One over here that will be virtual router, like say for Cisco, it's a ISR router on Azure, and this could be any router 2900 or any other ASR router. So you can use any of these router, and service provider will provide you the configuration for their part just like MPLS, and they will configure it for you. So these are the two ways how to connect from on premises to Azure region and different region. So we were talking about the VPN. The first method, that is the site to site VPN. So suppose we have one region on premises and we have one location at Azure. So in order to create a site to site VPN at on premises, we should have one router, or If we do not have any router, we should have at least firewall. And the mandatory condition is you should have either public IP on the router or public IP on the firewall. So firewall, even firewall does the routing part. So it is just equal to the router. And then when it comes to Azure, you have to create a VPN gateway. So you will create a VPN gateway at Azure. You will use the your on premises for this, and you will configure your on premises router for site to site VPN. And you, when once VPN gateway is connected or created, you can either connect any Azure region instead of VNet peering, VPN gateway to VPN gateway. That was the second option. Or you can configure site to site VPN from your router to the VPN gateway. So if I'll go to the portal, virtual network gateway. So it's a virtual network gateway, VPN gateway. If I'll go to for creating the virtual network gateway, it will ask me few details like vgateway1, where we want to deploy this, what we want to do with this vgateway. So there are two options. First VPN, second is express route. Which VPN will be configured by us, express route will be configured by us, but the details will be provided by the service provider, because then they need to be routing between your VPN gateway, virtual network gateway, and the service provider router. So they should be routing at the both end, and that will be provided by the service provider. So you can go assist, get the assistance with the service provider for express route condition, sorry, express route connection. And if we are doing all by ourselves without any additional cost, we can go for the VPN. Second option is for this gateway, what we want, route based or policy based. So if we want route based VPN, so we need to define a static route. In that case, we will define the route base. And if we will select the policy bit, it will automatically decide or go the route, or it will optimize the route by itself. So suppose we are selecting route base, there are different SQs available for this. So what is SQs? These are the options provided by the Azure for the VPN. So like if I will select basic one. So basic one has maximum number of site to site connection, that will be only 10. So max site to site 10. If I will configure point to site. What is point to site? Like your normal laptop to your office. So you are connecting it through either Global Protect or Any Connect, Cisco Any Connect or Pulse Secure. So similar to Global Protect, Any Connect or Pulse Secure, it's a point to site. So it can allow maximum up to 128 connections. There are different encryption version like IKE v2. So it won't support IKE v2. It will support up to IKE v1, which is less secure in compared to IKE v2. And the maximum throughput that will get in this VPN gateway, because for any premises, if you're talking about any firewall, anything, it will, every connection will terminate over here. So suppose I purchased a internet line for 1 Gbps and our router or firewall, I'm talking about normal, either on premises Azure or at your home. So I'm buying or purchasing 1 Gbps link from Airtel, and if our firewall or router can process only 200 Mbps of throughput, that was, does throughput mean it can accept the request and transfer the request, or from incoming it can accept the request or transfer the request up to 200 mbps, not more than that. That means I'm buying 1 gbps is waste, 800 mbps will be of no use. So if I at my laptop, if I will do a speed test, I will get maximum speed up to 200 mbps, not more than that, because it's a throughput up to 200 mbps. So similar thing happen over Azure as well. So if we are going to select basic SQ, it will provide up to 100 mbps. You can say it speed, or normally it's a throughput that it can process. There are different options like gateway 1, VPN gateway 2. If I will drop this option, gateway 1, gateway 2, gateway 3, and the advantage is like instead of for gateway 1, it will provide 30 maximum side to side connection and max 128. If I will go to gateway 2, it will provide side to side maximum 30 and point to side up to 250. Next 3, 500, and like that. So we are creating a gateway. We need to select different VPN gateway. So if we have very big infrastructure, we can go to top level. So it will provide more side to side connection. It will provide more point to side connection. It will provide IKE v2 that will be more secure and higher throughput, like 1.2 Gbps for the VPN GW3. Then we have to select which generation. For basic, it's only generation 1. That will be IKE1. Then we need to select our VNet. So
Pandiji, by
if I
connection means the number of users who will be accessing this Azure. Huh?
right, then I have to select the virtual network. It will take the address range. Next, the public IP. So I have to create a public IP. So I will select create a public IP for this network gateway, because in order to create a VPN, we need to have public IP, right? We are creating a public IP address over here. Next, if we are providing a high availability, so suppose if one VPN gateway goes down, then we should have another VPN gateway as a redundant gateway. So we have option to select active or active yes. If we have two of them and we know do not want active, it will be disabled and it will be running on the active passive. So since we are deploying only one, it should be disabled. If we are providing a complete routing, then we should select configure BGP yes. If we are not configuring any BGP over this, then we can disable it. Next, and review and create. So for site to site VPN, like I told you, you had sorry for site to site VPN you have two ends. First end is on premises, your router or firewall, and the second end is Azure. Over here we are creating a VPN gateway. So I think it's almost okay. It's creating. So it might take some time to create. So once it is created, then I will show you there are different n number of options to configure the site to site VPN. So until now, any doubt in this? So do I assume it's a no, right?
It's good, Nikhil, so far.
Okay. So will be created in a 1 to 2 minutes. So meanwhile, let's discuss a little about the express route. And once this is created, I will show you the different option available at the VPN gateway. So what is express route? It connect your on premises with your cloud. That's a Microsoft cloud via a dedicated private connection. It is excellent for if you want high bandwidth or you want dedicated bandwidth. So like if you are purchasing a 200 Mbps link for your office, so your provider can provide you 200 Mbps, but that doesn't mean it will hop through publicly to n number of routers. And if I am going to youtube.com and youtube.com doesn't have that much capacity on their link. So YouTube have supposed 10 Mbps. So if we are downloading or buffering from youtube.com that has 10 Mbps, that means you will get a return output of 10 Mbps. Or suppose you are purchasing this, okay, and you have another office running at the other end. And meanwhile, in the route, there's packet drops or there's some other issues. That means there is no guarantee that you will get 200 Mbps link or you won't get any packet drop, no SLA, nothing like that. So it's a public route and public route has no guarantee. So when it comes to enterprise, they do not want like this. So they want for the bigger enterprise, at least for even for the medium level enterprise, they want dedicated connection. So for on-prem to on-prem, they will go for the MPLS connection. That's a dedicated point-to-point link. They will guarantee you. Suppose I bought a 10 Mbps plan, so that will guarantee you 10 Mbps dedicated link. That means if it is going through multiple countries, Africa, Australia, or somewhere else, so there can be n number of countries in between. If this is the Airtel provider, so they will dedicate a lease line across whole this region, and they will create a VPN setup for this whole region. So they will guarantee like I have complete setup for this whole region. So you have 10 Mbps dedicated link. So in that case, there will be no traffic drop or no slowness like that because this whole path is owned by the Airtel. So similarly, when it comes to cloud, it is the express route. This is being provided by the Microsoft, and Microsoft has n number of vendors, Airtel, or every vendor that is available in the country. So it's a high, I mean, excellent for the data migration or business continuity so that business can continue to run. If it comes to disaster recovery, this is the best option because it is the guarantee of the provider to make sure that your path or route is connected as per guaranteed SLA. So there will be high throughput, there will be fast latency. I mean, there won't be any high latency, there will be less latency. It will be fast for you. So when it comes to configuration part, mostly the configuration is being supported by the provider. That's the you are opting for. Suppose we have Verizon running on it, they will provide you the details for configuration on your router. Then you will create a VPN gateway over here, and they will provide you configuration for VPN gateway as well. So once you have created the VPN gateway for the express route, dedicated link will be set up by the provider and they will make sure that your continuous it's running. So it's a connectivity when it comes to Microsoft, they have all the vendors. Doesn't matter it's Airtel or some Airtel or Verizon, T-Mobile or some other provider across the other countries like China, Germany, and also they have support for almost all the providers. So if you want dedicated link from the China to US, you will have dedicated link. There will be no restriction. Still connecting. It might take few minutes more to create. So let me open this syllabus for this and we'll see if something is left for the virtual networking part. Only the lab for the firewall, we'll see it in the next session and few more labs. Let me open where was this syllabus. Okay, this is the networking part. So we have looked in the virtual networking, it's a 30 to 35%. We have looked into the VNet pairing. We have discussed the public and private IP addresses. We have looked into the routing table. So that's the network route. We have discussed about the NIC card network interface, subnet, and virtual network. We have looked into the Azure DNS. We have looked and created the DNS for the private one, and we have checked how to resolve it and all. Next, we'll see on this part. It's the NSG. We have already discussed the NSG, how it works. Next was the firewall part. So for this one, the only thing is pending is the lab. And we'll see if we can do it today. Else we'll do in the next session. Further, there is one thing left at Azure Bastion server. So Azure Bastion server is nothing. It's a server that is directly connected to the public IP. So if you need to access your resource in the Azure, you can opt for this. So first you will get connect to this Bastion server that will be more secure. It will collect all logs, who's trying to access your resources or who is coming to your Azure network, and then you can connect to anything in your Azure. So it's something that is sitting in front of your network for the security or compliance or for the restriction purpose. So suppose there is some attack on your network or hacking attempt or on your network. So it won't be directly on your network, but it will be on the Bastion server. So that is the purpose of the Bastion server, so that if we are using our resources and we are trying to connect our resources on the public network, we need to make sure that we are not directly connecting, because if someone is trying to take control of one of your virtual machine and he is successful, then he will be able to take control of everything in your network. But when it comes to Bastion server, even if the hacker or someone tries to attempt to connect with this and take the control of this, he will be restricted to certain functions only. So he can browse the website, he can do the basic thing, but he won't be able to take control of anything in your virtual network, because when we are creating a Bastion server, the Bastion server is restricted to do certain functions only, not more than that. And even for the Bastion server, they are the request access. So if we want access to this Bastion server, its access is provided to certain person. So we have my laptop. So access will be provided to my laptop only. For publicly, it's by default deny. So we have my domain like Egon Zender domain, and Egon Zender domain is running. So it will be automatically for only allowed for the Egon Zender domain. Or if we have something else configured on our laptop for the authentication part, so we can allow access to the Bastion server for my laptop that provides the that authentication, and then only we can reach our internet network. There's the Azure Bastion server. We can see this in next lab. So we have covered the Bastion server part. Next, we will just, I mean, we left this application gateway. I will show you this application gateway now. What is application gateway? What is the purpose of the application gateway? Next, we have covered the load balancer. We have covered the load balancing rules. We have seen the internal, external, public load balancer and troubleshoot the load balancing. So then we have seen the network monitor, right? For monitoring part. So using that tool, we can troubleshoot anything. It's related to load balancing or something else. So it's even over here as well. Monitor from your connectivity from the network monitor, network performance monitor, network watcher, and troubleshoot the connectivity. So we have mostly used this tool network watcher for troubleshooting the connectivity.
निखिल
And the
प-
yeah, go on.
अगर पैरेलल में हम लोग जो क्वेश्चंस होंगे AZ104 सर्टिफिकेशंस के, अगर इससे रिलेटेड आप इसको भी डिस्कस कर सकते हैं तो
Yeah, sure. We'll discuss at the end if we'll talk about the networking part. In the next session, we'll discuss this.
क्योंकि जो जैसे
Or
टॉपिक चलता रहता है ना, तो उससे अगर आप रिलेटेड एक डिस्कशन कर लेंगे, ये क्वेश्चन आया था तो मेरे ख्याल से वो
okay, what I will do, Vishesh, I will create a Q&A
हम्म,
from actual Azure question that is being asked in AZ104. So I will create a Q&A, and then next Sunday, I will for initially 30 minutes. You have to perform that test 30 or 40 minutes. I will give you test as per the duration. You will perform the test for the 40 minutes, and rest 40 to 40 minutes we will discuss the answers. That will be good, right?
Yeah, right.
yes, right, right.
And even once we are done with everything, like we have covered this one, then networking part, this is the networking part, and Kubernetes is different little containers and Kubernetes. This will be last thing we'll discuss. But prior to this, we'll discuss the web app for the website part. We have already discussed. So once we have discussed some of the, I mean, mostly 80% of this syllabus, then we will create a complete network setup or complete setup, IaaS setup. So we'll deploy VMs, we will deploy web servers, website or web servers. We'll implement load balancer. We will create a firewall, and we'll set up VPN gateway as well. So as of now, I need the other end as well for the VPN gateway, but I have one of the trick in my sleeves. So I will use that trick, and we'll set up this VPN gateway, and even we'll set up the point to site VPN as well. So when we are covered with all the modules, and if you are going for any interview, you need to make sure that this whole picture is clear for you, not just bits and pieces like what is VPN gateway or what is express route and all. So no one is 100% good in any technology. So once you are done almost 50 to 60%, then we'll cover 10 to 20% using this model, complete model. So we'll create this whole infrastructure model. If you even if you will go to any training course module, I'm not talking about the specific to Azure. I'm talking about the big level when they will teach you the complete core cloud concept. And at the end, the only thing that is left, and that is the important thing, is the complete building of all the services. So this is being asked in the interviews. Like this thing, like network watcher, they will ask in interview like network watcher how to troubleshoot this, how to troubleshoot this. They will discuss like, okay, what is the limitation of firewall, and when you will start working, you need this whole complete picture. So at the end, we'll discuss this. Okay, for the QA ANA for the AZ104 exam, I will ask one of you to create the Q&A. I will provide you the material to them and even the link where to create the Q&A. So they will create a Q&A session for the Azure, and then I will give you the access to that link, and you can give the test, and then at the end of the test we'll discuss what was the answer and why it is the answer. And that will be the actual AZ104 questions. I think that is what you want, wishes, right?
यस यस मतलब एटलीस्ट जो
Okay, will
एग्जाम में आने वाला है उससे रिलेटेड क्वेश्चन से डिस्कस हो सके यहाँ पे.
sure, I will cover that. So where is our VPN gateway we are trying to build? Still building. So these are the sometimes resources do take time. So what else? Someone has, I mean, anyone has any query? Someone has any doubts?
Yes, I have some queries
Yeah, go on.
regarding if we are creating a VM, means we are creating VM and acquiring some spaces of the Azure. But as we stopped our VM and then Azure will not charge, right? Means if VM will not
Yeah,
work, it will not chargeable.
it will be chargeable, but
It will
for
be
very less amount.
okay.
The less amount, and mostly that amount is for the storage.
Okay,
So
yes,
when you are creating a VM, there will be storage, and you will be charged for the storage part.
that
That's
is my question. I was
yeah,
asking for that
yeah.
because we
You
are
will
acquiring a storage.
be, yeah, you are acquiring a storage. Even if your VM is not running, you are not using any CPU, you are not using any RAM. Still, your data is at the Azure
Yeah.
in the form of the storage. So you will be charged for the storage.
And
So,
if
so
I have created multiple VMs in different regions, like some in Central Asia, India, and something in US. So all will be connected through the peering, right?
yeah,
We
you
can
can
connect.
connect them. Right. You can connect them. So if you, I'll go to this subscription and I will see the billing. Next, I will go to the balance. Over here, you can see the storage part. There's only one subscription. Still loading. Okay. Usage. Okay, here it is our subscription. So you can see Ravi, there is
Yes,
storage part associated. So you are being charged for this storage even if your virtual machine is not running.
Yes.
There are different stories depend upon the what machine you created. So you are being charged for this storage. So it will continue to charge you even if your virtual machine is not running.
Yes, right.
Okay, it might just taking some time. Meanwhile, let me check something for you.
And what about the terminology, the different terminology like resource group, VM, and different headings we are using. So, is there any documented part so we can go through with that?
Yeah, I will share you the share you document, relevant document for this. I
Okay.
think some of you might have received half of the document earlier.
Yes, I think there was one mail earlier in the class.
Yeah, send the mail. You can check that for the initial documentation. Rest I will share. Okay.
I have one more questions.
Okay. Go on.
Is there any option regarding if I have created my resource group and I have performed different tasks, then I have deleted all the tasks from my resource group. So is there
Yeah.
any uh, recovery from my resource group? Is there any option?
No. So if you have
Okay,
deleted everything, there won't be any recovery.
okay,
So you have to set up the recovery earlier, prior in advance.
okay.
Actually, I was looking for the next event of the Azure where you can get the free coupon for this. They haven't, up to 29th, all the slots are booked. They haven't released the slot for the Feb yet. This gateway is taking some time, still deploying. Okay, guys, anyone, any other questions?
And I have one more.
Go on,
So,
go on.
while creating multiple VMs, so if I am using the same username and same password,
Yeah.
so is it okay? Because for multiple VMs, my all username and all password are same.
Yeah, there is no issue. You can use the same username and password. It's up to you if you want it secure or not. So if you are using the same, it's less secure, right?
Yes,
So if
right.
someone is able to get one password, then he can access all your resources with that password.
Okay.
So it's a risk for you, not for the HO. Okay, guys, I think okay, let me show you something. I left application gateway. We left this thing, or we can go to some virtual machine directly. Okay, there is one test one. We'll go to networking. So there is one more thing that is left for the application security group. So we learned about the network security group, NSGs, right? What is ASG? ASG is nothing but mapping of different applications or machines in a group. So suppose we have VM1, VM2, VM3, VM4, and we want same rule on the NSG for all these VM. So we have to create four rules, right? So instead of creating four rules, we can create a application security group, ASGs. So we'll create a ASG, we'll apply this that rule, NSG rule for the ASG. So how we'll do that? We'll go to application security group, create application security group, test, test, ASG, review create, create. So once this ASG is created, we can associate any virtual machine to this ASG. And is there any NSG running? Network security group, here it is. So we can go to any NSG, go to any rule, add rule, source, we can select the application security group. If there is one created, we can select the test SG like I created, and then we will select these rules. So suppose this test SG, they have 5 VM associated. So rule will be applied to all VMs. So when there is NSG at the subnet of init level. Sorry. So suppose there is NSG at the subnet level that connects to different VMs, then we can leverage the application security group ASG. We will create a ASG for 4 VMs, and instead of creating the rule for all these, like for this destination IP, this destination IP, this destination IP, this destination IP, that means 4 rules, we will create a ASG, and destination IP will be the ASG name. So suppose we create test SG and 4 VM are associated with this. So port priority 310, port 80 will be allowed for all 4 VMs from your machine or from another other source as per your rule. This was the one more thing that is left. Think okay, this is. VPN gateway took a lot of time. Okay, here it is. Okay, so it's still updating but created. So if we'll see here, so we can create connections for any other site. Suppose we are creating from one VNet to another VNet. Test one. These are the options. Okay, so I will go over here. So this is for the site to site or express route. What do we want with the virtual network gateway? So suppose we are creating VPN, site to site VPN. We'll select this. Then we'll select the gateway. So V gateway 1. Then we'll select the local network gateway. So if there is no local network gateway, so suppose we are creating a VPN gateway for this VNet. So there should be the gateway that is externally, that is V gateway. There should be local gateway that will connect this VPN gateway to your VNet. And then at the other end, there will be on-premises router or firewall. So if I will go over here, I need to create a local network gateway. Test. I have to give the IP address. There should be the IP address of that VNet. Okay, it's created. Then when we are configuring any VPN, so either it is certificate based or it is pre-shared key base. So this key will be used to encrypt the traffic between one location to other location. So traffic need to be encrypted. For this, we'll use pre-shared key. So there are certain restriction. I mean, it's not requirement, mandatory requirement for this pre-shared key. So we'll select certain pre-shared key. If you want to use the Azure private IP address for the internet connectivity, we can select or leave it like that. Next, IKE protocol. This is the less secure for the basic one, and if you are using gateway 1 or 2, then we can select IKEV 1 or 2. Text resource, okay. So it will create a configuration for your gateway, and from other end we need to manually set up everything. So we'll use the pre-shared key. We will use the VPN gateway IP address for configuring the gateway from your office router. So this was the one end configuration for the VPN gateway. If we want point to site from your laptop to the Azure, we'll select point to site, configure now. We'll give a certain IP address pool. We need to upload a certificate, and once certificate is uploaded, we'll download a VPN client. This VPN client, just like your Pulse Secure, your AnyConnect client or Global Protect client, it will be downloaded on your laptop, and then using that client you can connect to Azure. And that Azure will be this VPN gateway. So we'll get connected to VPN gateway. This will be site point to site connection. And about the VPN gateway, right now it's a SQ is basic. If you want standard, we can select a standard, or if you want high performance, we can select high performance. So these are the some options. This is for the site to site. This is for the point to site, just like VPN on your laptop. And there are some log metrics and other configuration. So any doubt or question in this?
No, sir.
It is created. That's SG is created. It's still pending, I think. Okay. We'll go to virtual machine, test one, networking, application security group, configure. So if there is ASG, I will select this ASG and save. So we are creating a ASG and then I connected one VM. So we'll create a bundle of VM or servers on the ASG and create a same rule. So we'll go to the another machine, test 2, networking, ASG, configure, test SG. So I added two virtual machine on this ASG. Now I can go to NSG. Inbound security rule or outbound security rule, and if they are in the same subnet, instead of selecting any IP address or source or destination, I can select the application security group and the SG, test SG. So the rule that I will place like 100 rule, priority rule, that will be on the top of this list will apply to all, I mean both two VMs that I selected. So it's a bundling of VM IP resource group for the NSG rules. Good. Any doubt? This failed because I created a random VPN gateway setup. So there was nothing at the other end, so it failed. Any get sorry, any questions?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, so we'll end session for today. In the next session, we'll see remaining lab for the networking part, and then in the last section on the Sunday, we'll perform one test and we'll see how things are going on. And on the perspective of Azure 104 examination, and we'll discuss all the questions. So you'll get to know. I mean, there are multiple concepts that you will get to know by studying things in the depth or going through the documentation and all. Sometimes it do happen like things. Those are the not the part of the general discussion, but when you are reviewing the question, you will get to know. So we'll discuss all those things in the next text. So are we good today?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, guys. So we'll see next week and have a great week, right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Sir.